So when I took this build on, I thought it would be a nice little small cute build, and as you can see, it's not really that big. I knew there'd be a Caravan with it, but I thought it'd be a little Caravan, and I thought maybe it'll come to about that long. And I thought, you know, what could go wrong? Welcome to issue 40, guys. Welcome to stage 40, Caravan side wall, and the only word I can think of here is wow. I mean, look, this, I've got this in a screen, but let me just bring my hand in. Can you see how incredibly large that is? Let me get a small ruler. So if you want an idea of how big it is, this is a 15 centimeter ruler. This is absolutely ginormous, and I'm actually, don't say this very often, but I'm actually thankful we're not doing any work on the chassis today, because can you imagine doing some work on the chassis, and it would have to be done in 2 stages. So this Caravan is approximately 33-34 centimeters. For you that operate on a different wavelength, that's about 13 to 14 inches. That's just the Caravan, and this is absolutely amazing. And I'm looking at lots of parts here, and I'm just really blown away by these parts. I will explain why later on. Some of you will laugh at me. Some of you will probably be on the same wavelength. And the other thing I notice is sometimes I judge a part work on the price that I spend for the entire build, and I understand that sometimes you get a lot of bulk, sometimes you get a lot of work, but you don't get much bulk. And I've seen people, like, you might get a wire and a couple of screws and they'll go, oh, this really isn't worth the money. Yes, it is, but in this particular case, looking at all the number of parts and the amount of bulk that you get, can you see anybody complaining about this issue? Anyway, I will waffle on no more. So let's go through the parts list. So we have 40A, which I think is this piece, and I now think it's not this piece. So we have, oh, do you know what, I was right in the first place. It was because I had it the long way around. So this is the passenger seat belt. Let me bring my light down. What doesn't help is these black or these white parts don't really reflect the light too well. So this is the passenger seat belt. Now, reason I love this is nostalgia for me. In a modern car, they've got all of these seat belts and they pull in the event of an accident. In the old days, if you even had a seat belt fitted, you can see that it was just a piece screwed to the floor, and that was all that was saving your life in the event of an accident. That is just, I love it, love it. Modern seat belts are so much more sophisticated, and it's the fact that this is so basic that makes this lovely. Now, it doesn't say this in the magazine, but I've just noticed that this says left. So if this is going on the left, which is this side, it means that this is going to be a right-hand drive, isn't it? Because if the oh no, this is the driver seat belt, sorry, I do apologize. So this is definitely going to be a left-hand drive vehicle, so the driver will be on this side. So anybody in Europe or anyone outside of the UK and Australia will find that quite normal. Anyone building this in the UK knows that we sit on this side of the car to drive it, and that will seem very odd, but remember, this is a Polish vehicle, so it will be, driver will be on the left. So Next one is the passenger seat belt holder, and that's this piece. So as you would expect, it looks exactly the same as the driver, except there's a little R on there and it's on the opposite side. Next up we have the accelerator pedal, which looks, thankfully they've put these in order. So this is the accelerator pedal, gas pedal, however, and I'm actually quite intrigued as to what order they go in, because in the UK you have 3 pedals, and it goes A, B, C. Coming from the outside of the car, A, B, C, which is accelerator, brake, clutch. So I'm intrigued, are they in the same order if they're on the other side, or are they reversed? So I'll get to find that out later on, won't I? So part D is this one, which is the clutch pedal. I'm just double checking, yes, that's definitely the clutch pedal. Look at that grip. See that rubber pad on there? That's not actually rubber, it's plastic, but it's made to look like the rubber pad. And then next we have the brake pedal, which is this one. So there's the brake, and that's quite interesting because you can see the way that it's angled. It's coming from towards the middle of the vehicle. So obviously if this was a UK version, it would probably be bent the other way. So that's the brake pedal. So after the brake pedal we have the brake pedal plate, which is F, which is this piece here. So that's obviously, you can see there's a channel in there, so that's going to go over something along those lines. So that's going to hold it in place so that that pedal is actually going to move, and I think I can see why, because piece G is the brake cable. This is one of these horrible little switches. They're very, very sensitive, and it's just a contact switch. So what happens is the signal comes up, it's interrupted because the 2 wires aren't making a connection. As soon as any contact's made, it then enables the signal to go back down the other wire back to the circuit board, and it tells the circuit, or the circuit board then tells the rest of the car what to do with that power. So in this case, with it being a brake pedal, I would suggest that the action that it performs is to light the LEDs that will be the brake lights. So EFGH is the Caravan door upper trim. No, sorry, 40H is the right outer wall. So let's get this out without, oh, this is fixed right. So what they've done is they put some little bubbles just on the edges to stop that from falling out. So I'm sorry, I may make some noise. You know I like to try and open these before. Oh wow. And that's got kind of a glossy finish. I'd say that's more of a satin finish. There's the original white plastic, which is quite dull and boring. Doesn't need to be exciting. You can see there's going to be panels, and then on this side they've made it a nice exciting finish. Wow, I'm really loving this issue. So I'm going to put that back, and I don't think we're actually going to need it. And then we have the Caravan door upper trim, which is I. So what's this, a window perhaps? Don't know. But that's a plastic piece that's been shaped. So if you can see that shape, okay, there we go. So it's like we've got a little router along the edges and just smoothed off those edges. And then we finish off with CP screws, and it actually says M screws, CPM, M screws 1.7 by 4, 6 plus 3 pieces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, so there's 9 screws in there. So I don't understand the CPM screws. That's a little bit odd, but that's fine. So we will also need the floor from the previous issue, which is here, and we will begin with the driver seat belt holder. which is this one here, and that's going to got to check our orientation. So looking at the detail, we can see that we're looking at these mats, so it wants to go in this hole there, and that will go, you see how this comes down, and then it's going to go in towards the middle of the vehicle. So we'll screw that in place like that, and that's quite handy because the L will be hidden because it's in the middle of the vehicle. So let's get some screws ready, and do you know what, I'm gonna use the new screwdriver again that came with this particular pack. I'm pretty sure that by the time I start the next pack of the Fiat, which will be another month, this will probably become out of favour. But the screw needs to come in from below, and be careful with this plastic because the floor is like a hard acrylic and there's not really any give in it, so it will crack rather than bend. And it's a little bit of a jigsaw puzzle, but I'm going to try and find that hole. It's really hard to find if you're not actually looking at it. I'm trying to feel it rather than look at it, and that's causing me a problem. So we'll screw this in, and that's about as much as it wants to go, and I can see that that's fixed. Look at that, that's beautiful. Can you see how that seat belt is attached to the floor? It's just bolted. If you were to have an accident, that's all that's saving you. That bolt there, that one bolt there, that is all that's saving you from going through the windscreen. Although saying that, I don't think the Fiat 126 could go that fast, can it? Hasn't it got a 0 to 60 in about 3 years? So step 2, as you probably guessed, that is going to be the passenger seat belt holder, and that's going to go into the floor next to the driver's seat belt holder. So I certainly hope that at some point in the build they will give us seat belts. So remember, this is going to come down and then go back in towards the middle of the vehicle. So we'll get that screw lined up ready, and for a free screwdriver this is actually excellent. There are better screwdrivers out there, I will admit, but for the money that you pay, this is actually a really good screwdriver. Really no complaints there. So the only problem I've got with this, because it's held in with a single screw, it means that you can rotate this wrong. So you need to keep checking the order, and I've put this in slightly crooked. So I just need to back this screw off just a tiny bit so that I can move that. There we go. And then I need to hold that hard and then finish screwing that in and keep adjusting. That's not perfect, but I think that's as good as I'm going to get it. Now the only worry I have now, you have these little bits there. I'm hoping something goes into those, because on these you would actually have a little red bar, and you press that bar to release the seat belt. So there's another mod idea for you. If you just wanted to get yourself a gloss or a satin red, do a bit of research, because I think the red will go on the outside. So for the passenger will be on this side, and the driver will be this side, and just do a little red line along there, and that will just add a little tiny touch of detail. But then again, saying that, we don't know what's coming, do we? So the next step then is to take the accelerator pedal 40C, and we need to turn this around, and this is going to be fixed into the floor like so, and you'll see that there's 2 holes to fix it on the floor, but there's only 1 screw hole, and the reason for the 1 screw hole is because there's a locating peg on the opposite side. So we need to locate that peg, focus only on the peg, and then once the peg's gone in, we can line up the hole and we want to secure that with, let me double check, a CP screw. I thought it was going to be the CP screw because that's the only screw we've been provided this week, and that will go in like so, and because it's plastic we will let the screw tell us when to finish. So there's our accelerator pedal. So that actually answers my earlier question. I said that when we're driving on this side we have A, B, C, which is it'd be accelerator, brake, clutch, and it actually goes the exact same way on a European car. So A, B, C. So we can assume the brake's going to go there and the clutch will go there. So the next one is step D, step 4, sorry. Fit the clutch pedal 40D into the middle slot at the front of the floor. At the front of the floor, line the hole of the pedal with a corresponding hole in the floor. So this is going to go into there. That's interesting. So there is no reference, but there actually is a reference. So you'll see there's like a little angled screw hole, and that wants to go onto there like so, and I find that rather intriguing, the fact that the clutch is, does that mean the brake pedal is going to come over the clutch pedal? Will that then interfere with the clutch pedal when you press it? I don't know. So this is giving me lots to think about and wonder while I'm doing it, and I think anything that gets your brain going isn't a bad thing, is it? So there we go, that's in place, and that's told me when to stop. So there's your clutch pedal. Excuse me. And that's not going to be operational because there is nothing that the clutch can do. The accelerator pedal's not operational either, because would you want to be putting your finger on the accelerator pedal and then the car goes zooming off? Right, so the brake pedal goes, this is stage 5, sorry, slide the brake pedal 40E into the inner slot on the floor. So there we go, that explains the pedals now, doesn't it? So that goes into the inner slot, and there we go, that's how our pedals are going to go. So if you notice, the accelerator pedal is actually nowhere near the brake pedal, so there's quite a lot. Normally when you operate the brake and the accelerator, you've got your heel on the ground and you're doing that between the pedals. This one looks like a little bit different. So that's quite interesting. Anyway, so to finish this part off, we need to place the brake pedal plate over it from the back. So you see how that's sticking out there. And let me just bring my, oh no, that's perfect. So when we put the brake pedal in, can you see there's a small recess there? And I'll try and do this with a cocktail stick so you can see better. As we slide that down, there, do you see how the brake pedal falls into that recess? So, and I'm actually holding the pedal right down as well. And then what we need to do is, this also has a recess in it, and that recess needs to go over the brake, and you guessed it, we're going to secure that with a single screw. And I know that's not going to hold, but one thing I don't like about this screwdriver, it's got a rounded end. Sometimes with my Aurea, which I said is awesome because it's purple, I can stand that on its end. So for this particular case I am going to switch to my most awesomest screwdriver in the world. And so I'm going to hold the brake pedal down, I'm going to place this piece over that recess. When I'm happy that it's in place, I'm going to hold it down with my thumbnail. In fact, I'm going to hold it with my thumbnail, and then I can bring my screw in and we'll pop that in just enough to bite. We can then double check that this brake is in properly, which I think it is, and then we can continue to screw that in until it tells us when to stop. And that is the point. So now we have a brake pedal that moves. So what we'll be able to do once it's finished, we'll be able to bring our finger in, touch the brake pedal, and then that will operate the brake lights. So the next step then is we need to take stage 4, part 40G, which is this piece. Now it's telling us to gently open the tabs at the back of the brake cable. So what it's done is it's lifted this one up. I don't know if that's actually going to be needed, because as you can see there is a reasonable gap between the two. So I wonder if I can perhaps bring something coloured behind that. Well, there we go, that shows it off a bit better. So there is a reasonable gap there, so check this. In this particular case I'm not going to I don't think I'm going to open the gap, but I'm gonna do the next stage, and what we're going to do, we're going to evaluate everything all the time, and anything that we need adjusting, we can do that. So this is going to go, so if you notice there is a locating tab and a hole, and that's going to go in this way round, over these holes there, and we will fix that with a screw. I'm sorry that you can't see that too well. So we'll get our screw ready on our screwdriver, because by placing it on its flat end, that will save us needing a third hand, which we quite often need these third hands, sometimes a fourth and occasionally a fifth. So can anyone remember, I think there's a Hindu god, and she's got many arms, and I bet she really enjoys part works. Right, so I fixed the switch, and I'm looking at that gap, just waiting for it to come into focus. So if I operate the brake pedal now, you can see that as I touch the brake pedal it makes contact. So I think in this particular case I was correct. So in fact, actually I'm going to push that downwards. So I feel that gap might be a bit too large, so I'm just going to bend it downwards, and then there we go. So long as at rest those two bits of metal are not touching, and then if you press the brake pedal at some point, as long as they make contact, in reality that should be making contact with just the slightest touch on the brake. As this is a model, we don't need to go that far, but just need to adjust this to a point that we like, and that is a point that I like. It's better to slightly overbend it, because it might relax back at a later stage as it gets older. But yeah, that I'm really happy with. I was expecting a spring for a release mechanism, but in actual fact it doesn't need the spring, because the way it's pivoted it will naturally fall up. I don't understand the science behind that, but it works. So that the clutch doesn't move because it doesn't need to, the accelerator doesn't move because it doesn't need to. I suppose they could have perhaps triggered this to a switch to make engine noises, but that's not needed. But this brake moves, so it will trigger the brake lights. So we have one more stage left to do, and there are no screws left. And I've got to confess, I have had a little advanced look at some of the packs, and I'm really impressed at the way that this is being done. What they will be doing over the next few packs or issues, they will give us a little bit of the car to do, not too much, but then they will supply us with Caravan parts, and we won't necessarily do much with the Caravan parts. But as you can see, if this was one issue, all we're going to do is we need to take part 40H, which is the Caravan side wall, all 30 something centimeters of it, and then we need to take the upper trim, and you'll see there's 3 nobules on there, and they push fit into there, and they are actually a very good push fit connection. Now, am I happy with white? This part has come in white, and in the magazine it's coloured black for this trim, and I think that's more to highlight the parts. But I'm actually quite liking it is actually white when it says at the end of the stage, but this actually has a large scope for modification, so you could perhaps colour this trim in black or another colour. You could spray all of this piece, I don't know, pick a random colour, say purple. So you could really modify your Caravan if you wanted to. But going back to the parts, what they could have done is they could have given us this Caravan wall and this trim, and that would have been for the price we pay, that's probably a worthwhile issue, but it certainly isn't a lot to do. So what they've done is they've chosen us to give 3, 4, 5 tiny parts, and then we put those in, so it just ekes the issue out. And I believe the next pack we'll get a few more little car parts, or a little bit something to do on the car, and then a few little Caravan parts to collect, and then we'll keep doing small bits to the car with a little bit of Caravan, and then all of a sudden we, without even realizing it, we will have a big collection of parts for the Caravan. And then what they can do is they can supply us with a few more parts, and then we start to put all the Caravan parts together. So I am really happy with the way they've done this. As you know, sometimes we get a lot to do, sometimes we get a big bulk, sometimes we get very little with very little to do. So far, the amount of work that we actually do with this Fiat, I am rather happy with it. So what I'm going to do now, I know this isn't going to be used for a while, so I'm actually going to get the top of the, I don't even know if this is, yeah, so I'm going to get the top of this, and I'm going to put this back in its packaging, which will flatten that top a little bit, which is going to give me an ideal place to store the inside of the car. And then that is actually the last issue for the pack. So although you will be getting stage 41 next week, because of the schedule that I make these, I won't actually see another issue for a whole month. So I need to store these safely, and I would suggest this packaging is just the ideal candidate for it. So I hope you've enjoyed the last 5 issues of the Fiat. I certainly have. And I hope you'll join me for stage 41 next week, when we will be doing something. So take care, guys. Bye bye.